Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodenmer, and on this week's episode, we're talking about the new full-frame cameras from Panasonic.
Plus, your questions about shooting telephoto on the iPhone, losing signal on the Mavic Air drone, and why you should avoid cheap step-up rings.
Hey, Mr. Griffin Hammond, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. I watched your video on how you pack all your gear, which was fascinating. It seems like it would be boring, but I thought it was actually pretty interesting. Well, yeah. Also, it seems like you just pack too much stuff. Like, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem comfortable.
It's not comfortable. Although that that Think Tank Perception Pro bag, it must be the straps or the way the weight is distributed. It does feel pretty comfortable, even with 26 pounds in there.
That's good.
So yeah, there are a couple short videos I've made in the last week that I kind of want to talk about today, some of those topics.
A couple?
I made the video about Panasonic's announcement of the new S series cameras.
Oh, I did see that. Yes. Yes.
I mean, that was a week ago. Yeah, that was kind of our bonus episode for last week. And then, I just made this packing camera gear video that I also would like to talk about a little bit.
Oh, and you also made a quick little video about your filmmaking workshop, but it had some really cool drone footage in it, I thought, from your time in Salt Lake and in Michigan. Michigan?
Oh, yeah. We'll have to talk about that, too, because I tried to shoot that video twice, and the first time I did it was a complete failure.
Oh. Look good whatever you put out, so good job.
Thanks. So I want to start with the new Lumix S series cameras. Have you seen these?
I have. I want one.
So
Can you get me one?
The headline for people who are not familiar with this is that Panasonic is joining the full frame community. They're making 2 cameras on the horizon coming out in early 2019 that will be using a full frame sized sensor.
So this means it's a whole new camera system. My lenses are no good here.
Right, you can't fit Micro Four Thirds lenses on them because it's a bigger area to cover. So it'll be a bigger camera. It'll be bigger lenses. I actually made a mistake when I was talking about it in last week's video that several people corrected me. I called it a Super 35 sized sensor.
Very wrong. Very wrong.
Do you know the difference between Super 35 and regular 35?
Super 35 is smaller than 35, right?
It is. In fact, now that I think about it, maybe Super 35 is what the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera was? No, I can't remember.
I don't know.
But yeah, I knew that full frame, the term full frame refers to a 35 millimeter sized sensor, and I got that confused with Super 35, which is a different thing. It's a smaller thing.
Right.
So yeah.
So why do we like bigger sensors? Griffin, what does that do for us?
Well, it can improve image quality, and most notably, it lets in more light because you have more area that light is hitting, and it also increases bokeh. So if your goal is low light performance and putting things out of focus in the background, full frame can do those things better than a smaller sensor.
Yeah, we just talked about the iPhone last time and how I was, hemming and hawing as to whether I should get the new iPhone or not because we heard the sensor was 30% bigger, and that makes a big difference in image quality. So, same concept here.
Well,
Which, by the way,
these small
Griffin,
little.
I bought the new iPhone. I tried not to. I wasn't going to do it, but then I did do it. So I'm part of the 10S Max Club.
I knew I wanted to talk about iPhones with you today, and it's funny how all this stuff
ties together.
Yeah, it really does tie together. But yeah, like even just making small changes in the sensor size makes a big difference. I mean, the GH5S notably has a barely bigger sensor than the GH5, but that does improve light performance.
Yep.
And so, we've talked about before, you don't always need a full frame sensor. Even just having a Micro Four Thirds sensor is significantly bigger than an iPhone sensor. So you get that really nice DSLR look out of it. So it's just kind of a matter of where on that continuum do you want to live? You could certainly shoot great films with an iPhone. You could certainly shoot great films with a Micro Four Thirds sensor, and you can shoot great films with a full frame sensor, and each one has a trade-off.
Yes, indeed.
In fact,
And these are obviously going to be bigger cameras than, say, the GH5. Is that accurate?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it'll have to be.
The lenses are bigger, the bodies are bigger. Definitely
Right.
not as compact.
Well, that's what I thought was funny, is that in 1 week I made a video about, I'm excited for this new camera, and if Panasonic is willing to let me get my hands on it, I would love to play around with it and shoot some cool stuff. So I'm sure I'll
Me
be
too,
using it.
by the way.
Yeah.
Panasonic.
Just putting that out there.
Putting it out in the world. I can test things too.
So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to get my hands on this thing and see what a difference it makes. But then the irony is, also this last week I made a video about how economically I can pack a ton of camera gear. I can bring 3 camera bodies and 4 lenses right now with me on the road, and I won't be able to do that.
That may not be the case with this type of a camera, right?
Because I don't know exactly how much bigger this body will be, but it could be 50% bigger. I'm sure the lenses are where the dramatic.
I bet the lenses are really where it's going to be at. Yeah, exactly right.
So what? Now maybe I could fit 1 or 2 camera bodies and 1 or 2 lenses instead of 3 and 4.
Should we run down what we know about the camera thus far? Or should we just direct people to the video you've already released?
Yeah, let's see if we can remember the highlights here. I mean, there's 2 cameras that we're talking about. So
they've got the S1.
Yeah.
And the S1R.
Yeah.
And the S1 is more of a video photo camera, and the S1R is kind of a pure photo camera, I believe. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah. The S1R, I don't remember the megapixels exactly, but it's a higher megapixel sensor on the S1R.
It's like 40-something, right?
I think it is, yeah. In fact, I should pull up the article about it. In fact, we'll have to put this in the show notes, this DP review article about all the new stats on these cameras.
47 megapixels on the S1R, 24 on the S1.
Yeah. And yeah, I think Panasonic even says the S1R is a photography camera. The S1, I think they even use the talking point that it's a 70% stills, 30% video, kind of like wedding kind of people, photojournalists.
Hybrid photo and video creators.
So I don't know exactly what settings
ultimate
and
picture
features it'll
creation.
have based on the fact that they're saying that it's going to be more of a photography camera. I think one thing, we even got some comments about this. I think one thing that people were disappointed in is, let's see, we got a comment.
You're talking about the screen?
Yeah, so here's a YouTube comment from Trail Features, who is excited that the camera will have dual IS in there.
Yep.
And they're talking about 4K 60. So it kind of sounds like a lot of the features that are in the GH5 they're able to get in this camera with full frame. But one thing that he's bummed out about, he says, is that the flip screen, that it has no flip screen.
It's not a fully articulating screen. It will tilt and move in what they call 3 degrees, but you're not going to be able to point it at yourself and see what's happening like I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now to film myself. I'm actually shooting with my GH5 today. Because I think on this new camera you'll be able to you'll be able to turn the LCD up, you'll be able to turn it down, and I think you might even be able to go left and right, but you're kind of always behind the camera. You can't flip it outward to do vlogging style shots. But that kind of matches what they're saying about this. They're not saying it's a vlogging camera. They're saying it's a primarily photography camera.
I am interested in this. I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago. I've kind of always had this itch to go play with the Sony A7 series and kind of just see what it's like to shoot with a full frame sensor, since I haven't really done that. So it's very cool to see I might be able to do that and stay in the Panasonic world. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'll need new lenses because it's going to use Leica L mount lenses. And I think
which
Leica
already exists, right?
Yeah.
Leica already has a line of these lenses.
Yeah, I think there's already 8 of them out or something like that. And then I think Leica is committing to making a few more in the next year. And then Panasonic, I think, is committing to having 3 lenses available by launch time. So we're talking about early 2019. That could be spring. That could be, I suppose it could be anywhere between January and April. I don't know exactly when they'll do it. But they'll have 3. And then they're also saying they'll have more lenses by the end of the year. And those first three, what are they? Do you have them in front of you? I know one of them is a 50 millimeter prime.
A 50 millimeter prime, like an f1.2 or an f1.4. Let's see.
It's an f1.4, yeah. And when we say 50 millimeter, we're now using the full frame.
The full frame equivalent, because it is a full frame. It's not
so really, that's
equivalent.
similar to the 25 millimeter portrait lens that I currently shoot with. Although I gotta think a 50 millimeter f1.4 on a full frame, that's better than an f1.4 on a crop sensor. Like, that's even better light performance, even better bokeh. Yeah.
It looks like the other one is a 70 to 200 or a 24 to 105. I'm just kind of zooming in on a picture.
That's correct, yeah. And I don't think they've said yet what the aperture ranges of those two zoom lenses will be.
I wonder if they're constant or not. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll find out. We will find out.
And then two other things. Well, what were you going to say?
No, go. Two other things.
I was just going to say two other things that Panasonic announced. One is if you're worried about the future of Micro Four Thirds, which I think a lot of people have expressed that kind of worry.
Concern.
I mean, I don't think you should be worried because I think there's, this is clearly going to be at a different price point. I think for a consumer like you, Nick, that has the G85, like
Boom, G85.
You're interested in the full frame camera, but you're not going to go out and replace your small Micro Four Thirds, easy to shoot with, easy to pack camera and replace it with a camera that costs twice as much and takes up
it's twice as big space. And etc. Yeah.
So I think for a lot of consumers, this won't be the camera for them. I think some people will get really excited about this. Some photographers, some cinema people will be super excited. But I think Micro Four Thirds still makes a lot of sense for a lot of consumers. And, I mean, it makes sense now. There's no reason to think that you would have to stop shooting films with it next, in the spring.
Yeah, I fully expect them to continue down the line of the GH series. I don't think we're going to see that stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, who knows what happens with the GH cameras. I mean, someone was asking me if they're going to make a GH6. I have no idea. But whatever they call it, I'm sure they're going to continue to move down that Micro Four Thirds line. And they actually they announced a lens they're going to come out with this spring, which kind of shows their commitment to the Micro Four Thirds line because they're making a new Micro Four Thirds lens. Did you see this?
No.
It's really interesting. It's a 10 to 25 millimeter, and it's f1.7 constant.
Ooh, me want. It's like having a couple primes in your bag with one lens.
Exactly. I think that's exactly how Yosuke Yamane, the head of imaging at Panasonic, talked about it. He talked about it as having 5 different primes. What is that, like a 10, a 25, a 14?
10, an 11, a 12, a 13, a 14, a 15. I mean,
you might say it's 15 different primes or 16 primes.
You might say it's an infinite number of primes,
right?
Since it is manual.
But yeah, that's interesting to me because I already really like the 12 to 35 as a documentary lens.
Yep.
And
that's what
this
I'm
is
on now.
Almost that range. It's not quite as tight, but it's that range plus
so much faster.
Yeah,
that thing's gonna cost a fortune. Am I
mean,
crazy? It's gonna be a $3,000 lens, right?
I mean, yeah, because the 12 to 35 is a $1,000 lens. You can usually find it cheaper, but that's the MSRP. So yeah, right. I gotta think this is double or more. I don't know.
More, I bet more.
Yeah.
Now, if Panasonic needs somebody to test one out, let me tell you. No, I'm done now.
I mean, this would be a really good documentary lens because it has that range of wide angle for time lapses and establishing shots to a pretty good portrait focal length, and then it's just going to be a low light beast all over. So whatever your subject matter is, you'll be getting good footage.
Sweet.
In fact, this kind of answers a YouTube comment we got from Baron Collins Hill. He was wondering in my packing video where my 12 to 35 went, and he was wondering what my thoughts are on the 10 to 25.
Where did your 12 to 35 go? Was it on a camera at the time?
No, I just didn't bring it on this latest trip. I brought two 42.5 millimeters. That's that really nice prime lens, the f1.2. I happen to have 2 of them because I already owned one myself, and then Panasonic gave me one. and I just thought it'd be nice to shoot a wedding with two of the same lenses on the two close-up cameras. So I brought that, and I brought the 25mm prime, and I brought my 8-18. And I kind of feel like when I have the 8-18 and the 25mm prime together, that kind of negates any reason I would need the 12-35. But if you need one lens to cover that range, the 12-35 is a better bet.
Nice. What else do we need to know about these cameras, Mr. Hammond?
I mean, we don't know too much about it yet. I think that's
release
just
date?
about. There's no exact release date yet. They're just saying early 2019 right now.
Oh, well, that's not that far off, though.
Yeah, and this feels like a similar time frame to previous camera launches. Like, it was funny because some people were commenting, like, wow, I bet Panasonic's just doing this to respond to, like, Canon and Nikon just recently had announcements about full-frame mirrorless cameras. But it's like, you know that Panasonic, it's not like they started building this camera last month when they heard about...
Right. They've been working on this for a while, would be my guess.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of looking at what Sony's doing and saying, is that an area that, we need to be playing in?
Well, yeah, clearly Panasonic's not getting into full-frame cameras in a vacuum. They're responding to what consumers want.
Market conditions.
But I think timing-wise, it makes sense that they would announce something like this at Photokina. There's CES comes up in January, NAB is in the spring. So you can imagine probably at each of these things, like in previous years, there will be some moving forward on the announcements. I mean, I don't know exactly what they'll be ready to say in January or in April, but I would look at those events like in past years. So that's the new Panasonic cameras.
But you don't have one in your hands right now.
I don't.
Or at least you won't tell us.
Yeah, if I did, I couldn't tell you. Oh no, put it away. I do have my GH5 still, and like I said, I brought both of those and my GH4 on my latest trip, which was the subject of that packing video.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good segue into talking about iPhone stuff, because I get home with all my gear still in my bags, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to leave my stuff in the bags and make a video where I just unpack the bags and I can talk through this.
Yeah.
And so I was getting ready to shoot this video, and then I thought, well, wait, how do I actually shoot this? Like, 3 of my cameras, all my lenses.
Cameras are in the bag. I want to unpack in the video.
Right.
But fortunately, Griffin has 1,000 cameras.
Yeah.
Right?
So I pulled out the GH3, which I often shoot the podcast with. That's a 1080 camera. Shot it with that. Actually edited in 4K, and so it kind of looks like, if you're really looking at it full screen, it looks kind of sharp. Like, why is this filling a 4K frame? But
right,
it's doing some sort of digital sharpening or something. I mean, I don't know what Final Cut's doing to interpret it into 4K pixels. And then as a secondary camera, I actually mounted my iPhone above me. You saw this video, right?
Yeah, looking straight down, right? It's kind of a look into what's in the bag shot.
I mean, one nice thing about using the iPhone as a video camera is it's so lightweight that I was able to just put it on a selfie stick, like connector, like one of those little clamps on a selfie stick.
Right.
Did that onto a Pedco Ultra clamp. Did the clamp onto a light stand, because the light stand only had like a big tripod adapter, not like the little one. And then I just clamped. I actually used another clamp, not a Pedco Ultra clamp, just a regular old clamp. Well, I need a big clamp to mount this light stand onto the top of my closet system. But I was able just to kind of suspend this thing over the table I was working on. So that's actually 4K video. It looks really nice.
Very good.
And we got a comment from Tom Ryan, who said that he hates that I showed in the video what was shooting that overhead shot. I guess he was thinking that overhead shot looks great.
That comment.
Yeah. But he feels bad because now that he knows it's an iPhone, I guess he's kind of like, oh, but it looked so good to me. Like, how did I not notice? Why am I shooting with nice cameras if I can't tell that like this iPhone is what's shooting the shot? So he says if you had never mentioned it, I wouldn't have known. But then he's lamenting that if he were to do something like that, he would take hours to try to match the two shots and all that.
Gosh, who does that sound like that I know?
Well, yeah, I told him no, it's okay to like be that much of a perfectionist, because even if no one notices, I think if you just get enjoyment from that process, it's worth doing.
And you'll make yourself crazy if you don't. See, I do not have that affliction, though. I know you do.
Well, I kind of got around it for that video, because there were a few things in that video that were driving me crazy. One, it felt a little weird to mix the 1080 of the GH3, which I think on its own looks great. And I think if I were shooting a tighter shot with the GH3, you wouldn't really even notice that the resolution is missing.
Right.
It's because I'm shooting a wide shot of myself, like it's like a medium wide shot. You could just kind of see what detail you're missing, like in my face, and it kind of looks overly sharp. And then you mix that with the 4K footage of the iPhone, and you can just see the difference in resolution. And then the iPhone was looking a little bit purple compared to the GH3. And also, unlike the GH3, and I think your camera too, we've experienced that even when it's in auto white balance, it kind of does it gradually over a 30-second period, so you don't really notice it right away.
Right.
But on the iPhone, the auto white balance was happening, a second after I move a bag onto the table. I'm changing the color of the table, and it's updating the white balance very quickly. I also used that iPhone to shoot my sister-in-law's wedding over the weekend. Like, I used that as a wide shot.
You sent me 2 screenshots from that shoot. You sent me one from your GH5, I believe, and one from the new iPhone. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I used, or no, I guess it was the GH4 back there, because I was using the two GH5s as close-up cameras, a GH4 as a wide shot camera, but then as long as this is the new iPhone that I'm using. It's the iPhone XS Max, and I had literally gotten it the day before the wedding, and so I was just kind of excited to see what it looked like. So I set it up on another Pedco Ultra clamp and just let it get an even wider shot than what I was capturing with the GH4.
And I mean, it's a fairly dramatic difference in dynamic range, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, it was a difficult shot for a camera, because it was all the subjects of the wedding are in a yard that's kind of shaded by trees, so they're in kind of nice light, but they're definitely backlit because the lake is behind them. So the lake is just super bright. They're kind of dark by comparison, almost silhouetted. And in the GH4, it looked like a silhouette. In the new iPhone that I'm using, it was like twice as much dynamic range. I mean, you could see a lot of detail in the shadows.
Do you know what frame rate you were shooting at on the iPhone?
I was shooting in 4K 30, I think.
Yeah. So what I've read is when you're shooting in either 24 or 30 frames per second on the new iPhones, it will actually do, speaking of dynamic range, it got sunny again. Let me just adjust the old blinds. There we go. It will actually shoot at 60, and it will like over and underexpose frames and then combine them to give you like more dramatic dynamic range control. Like, it's amazing that I don't know if you can share the photos or not, but the GH4, the sky is white, and in the iPhone shot, it's blue. I mean,
right? Yeah, they're like similar exposure on the ground. Yeah, but the sky is rendered completely differently. You get color on the iPhone, and that's something I've kind of been wondering about for I guess ever since the GH5 came out. If it can shoot 4K 60, and yet most of the stuff we do is in 30 or less. Yeah, can't you do live bracketing in video? Like,
that's what Apple is doing here, and I think that is super interesting.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. It's really exciting.
Wouldn't it be great? I wonder, like, if Apple, not that they ever will, but if like they're like, let's take all our smarts and make a serious videography camera. Like, how cool would that be?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's interesting what they're accomplishing with the iPhone, because it's kind of like two different directions here. You have Panasonic that just announced their full frame camera. So, to improve low light performance, to improve image quality, you're going with a bigger sensor. Apple's saying, well, we can't do that. We can't do anything like that. I mean, we can go a little bit bigger to get more light in, but we're kind of limited by the size of the phone. So they're adding all this like smart what do they call it? Like machine learning.
Computational photography. But
Yeah.
machine learning, and they got the neural network and on the chip and things like that.
Where instead of giving you big enough sensor to have bokeh, they're just saying, well, we know what bokeh looks like and we know how it interacts in a photo. We can just take a really intelligent photo with 2 different lenses on your camera, do, what is it called, a depth map?
A depth map, yeah.
And then apply bokeh, and I'm sure purists listening to this podcast are like, well, that's horrible. That's not how cameras work. But that's probably the future of how cameras will work.
And I really like some of the shots I get out of it, and I love being able to adjust it on the fly or, afterwards, so it's not just on or off.
Well, yeah, not only is the portrait mode really interesting where it's using both cameras, but because I just updated from the, I had a 6S before and now I'm on the 10S. This is the first time I'm actually getting that second camera that is a telephoto camera. It's much tighter, right? And we actually got a question about this. The email was from, from Jahil, who said that I'd love to know how you got that sharp close-up shot of the bees from your Instagram video. I don't suppose you saw my Instagram story with bees.
I did see your Instagram story. Actually, I kind of forgot about it because it was a little bit ago, but that was kind of a fun little almost documentary that you built in Instagram stories.
Oh, yeah. In fact, it's still on my Instagram page on Instagram.com/Griffin Hammond. I've saved that story about the bees as a little, you can replay it. But that was interesting because, well, it's an interesting story already. There were a ton of bees hanging out on the beach of Lake Michigan. I was on the Michigan side, and there were all these bees that had, I guess they had washed ashore. That's what I figured out later, that they probably hadn't come to the shore. They probably were over the lake and got pushed into the water or fell into the water, and they washed ashore. And I ended up stepping on a bee, but I was trying to take all this footage of the bees on the shore, and if I just switched to that telephoto camera on the iPhone, just the 2X camera, everything just looked super interesting. I mean, there's a ton of detail in the bees, and I'm getting all this nice bokeh. It's a great way to take photos on the iPhone.
Did you get stung when you stepped on the bee?
I did. I think the bee might have been dead, though. I don't know if I got any venom in me.
But it hurt.
Yeah, it hurt, and I had to walk home on it because I couldn't get it out of my foot.
Oh, no.
It was fine. It was just a little
Did you cry? Did you cry?
I did not cry.
Okay.
I think I cried the last time I got stung by a bee, which was in first grade. I think it was my first day of first grade. I arrived at school.
That's a rough first day.
Yeah. So
I cried last night.
I want to know what
You're not gonna ask why I cried last night? I mean, that's hurtful.
I know why you cried last night. You cried because the Cubs lost the wild card game.
It was tough. It's tough. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to know, you teased it earlier about, I mean, you and I had talked about whether or not you were going to get the new iPhone, and it sounded like for a while you were going to hold off. I got mine because I was generations behind, but what ultimately sold you?
So I had the iPhone 10, and I think I said in the last episode, it was the day all the reviews were coming out, and when I watched the keynote, they didn't make the camera sound like a dramatic improvement. I feel like they undersold it, and all the reviews were like, holy crap, this is the biggest camera jump ever. And John Gruber at Daring Fireball figured out that the sensor is actually 30% bigger, and all this dynamic range and smart HDR, it was really making a dramatic difference. I take so many pictures with my phone that I'll pay the upgrade price to have better pictures. So that's what I did. I went with the 10S Max. Black, I think that's the same one you got, right?
Same one, yeah.
So we have the same phone. Congrats. I still have my old iPhone 10. I'll probably put it on Swappa or something. I'm going to sell it. So hopefully get some of my money back that way.
Well, yeah, we should talk about that for at least a minute, because you have often been in the habit of upgrading almost every time Apple comes out with a new phone.
I have had every iPhone but the 4S. I kept my 4 for 2 years, but other than that, I had the original iPhone, the iPhone 3G, 3GS, 4, 5, 5S, 6, 6S, 7, and then the 10.
You're not sitting on these letting them lose value. I've been impressed that you seem to make a lot of your money back, right?
Yeah. I mean, I expect to get $800 or $900 for my iPhone 10, and I paid $1350 or whatever for the 10s. So it'll cost me between $300 and $500 for the upgrade. But for a device I use every single day, all day long, and it's my primary camera really when I'm taking pictures of my kids and things like that, it's worth it in my mind, or at least that's what I tell myself.
And I probably, even though I upgrade less often, I probably am letting more money slip away because I do the thing where I hold on to all the phones and, maybe they go into my family. But it's like I'm only just now getting rid of an iPhone 5S because the 6S is replacing that for some people in my family. So, and, I get almost no money for a 5S. So I think your method...
It's a bigger expense for you.
Yeah, in the long run.
But you're helping out your family, and I am not.
Yeah,
I'm a big jerk. That's what it comes down to.
Do you have any tricks for getting the most value out of a phone?
eBay, although eBay is kind of a mess. I really like this website, swappa.com, swappa.com, is really good for selling phones. I find that it's just an easier selling experience, and you get pretty good money. There's other places like Gazelle and things like that where they buy it from you. The company does, but I find the values to be very low. So Swappa, you're selling it to somebody else directly, and they're kind of just an intermediary. So you have to be careful of fraud and things like that. But I've had really good luck with it thus far.
Cool.
So we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, before we get to questions, I want to play one quick clip. It's just a 90-second clip from a workshop that I just taught in Salt Lake City, but I thought it was kind of appropriate for today. It's just about the philosophy of not letting gear hold you back. I mean, we're talking about this new Panasonic camera coming out, or we're talking about the new iPhone. I'm tempted to get the new DJI Mavic Pro. These are all fun things to play with, but you definitely don't need them to tell your story. And so I just wanted to play this quick clip about that. I'm going to talk about the equipment I use, but that stuff, that's been evolving over the years. And I just want to say that you don't have to be shooting with this camera. You don't have to be recording audio with this audio recorder. You don't have to use this microphone. I keep replacing gear, but honestly, you could probably make a documentary with everything that you currently have, even if all you have is an iPhone. Any video camera in nice light outside in Utah will do an amazing job. And even another iPhone can record audio for you if that's how you want to capture audio for an interview. I think if you're just thinking creatively, how are you stabilizing your shots? How are you getting lighting? How are you getting good audio to pair with that video? You can do everything I'm going to talk about today. And I don't think equipment should ever be the thing that holds you back, because there's always going to be better equipment. Some of you I know have questions about the new full-frame camera that Panasonic just announced this week. You don't need it. I'm excited about it, but I definitely don't need that camera to tell a story today, and waiting for that camera to tell my story is not going to do anyone any good. Audiences love stories. They don't care about equipment at all. They don't even honestly really care that much if shots are lit well, or even if they sound that great. Those are all icing on the cake that make you really credible, but storytelling should be the most important thing. So I think if you find a good story, don't let anything hold you back from telling it.
Handy Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. Bring your stories to life with Squarespace, the easiest way to create an exceptional website, blog, portfolio, or online store.
In fact, as you may know, griffinhammond.com is a Squarespace site. It's also where Hey.film points to. So whenever we talk about show notes, we're talking about the website that is hosting the podcast, which is a Squarespace site. So I'm able to use it for everything I need for griffinhammond.com, and as a way to post. It's actually a good way to publish podcast content. So this week, there's, like always, things to check out on the show notes at Hey.film. Nick has a link to Swappa, the website he was just talking about for selling stuff. I have video links to the videos we've been talking about, so you can check that all out there.
Here's a special offer for our Handy Filmmakers audience. Try Squarespace free for 14 days and receive 10% off your first purchase by visiting squarespace.com/Griffin. Again, squarespace.com/Griffin, not /Nick, because I'm unimportant.
Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring the podcast and for making such a great URL that excludes Nick. It's just shorter. Well, Nick would be shorter.
No, Nick would be shorter.
There's probably already a Nick.
Probably.
So before we get to questions, I want to read one email that we got from Margot in Switzerland.
Okay.
And it's just such a nice email that we received. She said, "Hello, Mr. Hammond. I wanted to take the time to thank you and Mr. Bodmer for your podcast and advice on documentary filmmaking. I am a med school student in Switzerland and had my graduation exam today. For the presentation, I decided to make a short 15-minute documentary. Without your tips and tricks and your podcast with your friend, I would have not been able to achieve it. Frankly, I wouldn't even be a proud owner of the GH5, which I used to film the documentary. The presentation was a success, and I received a lot of compliments. I am very grateful that people like you and Mr. Bodmer offer your time and your knowledge to people like me around the world. Best regards," or as we say in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. Nick, why don't you try it?
Oh, come on. Mes meilleurs salutations.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know. I don't know how to say that.
Milieres. It's tough. But I think it means my best regards.
Yeah, my best regards, yeah.
I didn't Google that with a translator or anything. I just figured it out. It's dark again. The clouds. There we go.
So
that's a very, very nice note. Thank you.
It is. Yeah. Well,
and we're happy to help.
It's kind of why we make these videos, to share what we've learned. I mean, we get a lot of questions, and we often feel like answering them in public in a podcast setting helps more people, and so I'm really glad to hear that people like Margot found that useful.
Ready for some questions?
Yeah. We have an Instagram comment from Rye Clark, who's asking about the Mavic Air, seeing reports that it has connection issues, which makes the Mavic Pro a better drone. You have a Spark, right?
I have a Spark. You have the Mavic Air is your new one, right?
I do, yeah. And do you ever have connection problems?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Sometimes it feels like I'm plenty close, but it's acting like there's not great signal or the video drops out or something.
Yeah. Have you ever lost it like for a long period of time, or it was scary or something?
Only because of actual distance. I like flew it behind a mountain kind of, and I totally lost connection to it. But it did what it's supposed to do. It did the return to home and came back to me, and reestablished connection once I got close. So that's kind of cool.
Because I will say that after flying with the Spark and being able to fly it pretty far away, I mean, I'm always flying line of sight, but I can still get it really far away from myself. Then I switched to the Mavic Air, and I feel like I can only go half as far, or sometimes a quarter as far, before I'm experiencing transmission issues where maybe I'm losing video transmission. Like, I'm still able to control the drone. I can still see it in the air. It's still responding to my RC controls commands, but it's just not sending me back an updated signal. I'm seeing the signal from, it's frozen from 20 seconds ago or something. That's definitely happening to me more often with the Air than with the Spark, which is kind of crazy because it's a nicer, more expensive drone.
That is crazy. And
so I do think that the Mavic Air has some uniquely bad connection problems, and I have heard that the Pro is better. Even when I was in Salt Lake City, I was talking to some people who came to my workshop who had used both, and they said the Pro doesn't have those problems.
So you gonna upgrade?
I'm tempted to. I was watching some review videos over the past couple days. One, I'm not sure. I don't need to. Definitely, I don't need to. I am a little bit sad that some of the photos I take on the Mavic, I'm surprised that they don't look much higher quality than the video. Like, even though I'm shooting as a raw DNG, I'm just not able to pull out much more detail, and it's still pretty noisy. Like, the video is kind of noisy on the Mavic Air. It still looks beautiful, but it can be pretty noisy when I take like kind of sundown as the sun's going down. The colors are beautiful, but I'm just getting a lot of noise in the shadows. And the same seems to be the case with photos. So I was kind of curious if the Pro would help out there, but I'm not sure it would enough to warrant spending twice as much on the drone.
Tough decisions. We
And
have
I've
another
also
question. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just say I've flown enough with the Mavic Air now too. I've taken 40 flights with it, and I've learned to trust that yes, the return to home does work. I've let it do it on purpose to make sure I understood how that worked and that I trusted it. And I've realized that it was scary when I first started losing transmission signal, but I realized most of the time I'm not losing RC control. I'm just losing the video transmission, which isn't a big deal to me. I have lost RC control, but it's only happened for a second or two at a time, and I do now understand that the drone would come back if I completely lost RC control.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of a problem, a little bit of a handicap sometimes, but not a huge deal.
We got a tweet from Keen, and I had this exact same question, and I kind of forgot about it. What was the small case you had for the Mavic Air RC and battery in your unpacking video?
Yeah, because the Mavic Air comes with that beautiful case that holds just the drone. It folds up into this nice little hard case. But there's no way to store the blade protectors, and there's no way to store the rest of the accessories, the RC controller and all that. So I put all the blade protectors in, I think, just this little zip-up pouch that I got. I think I got it for free for flying Lufthansa once. They just gave...
Okay.
I can't remember, like maybe some toiletries came in it. It's just a little cheap thing, but it happens to be the right size for that. And then for the RC controller and the battery and the AC adapter, I put them all in this little, it's just a toiletries bag. It's designed for putting your shampoo and toothbrush
Toothpaste
in.
and all that stuff, yeah.
But I got it at Muji. Muji is this Japanese company that's in Japan, and it's in New York. I actually think I bought it when I was in Taiwan maybe, but it's the perfect little fit. It's a $25 bag. And actually, I put it on my gear list at griffinhammond.com/gear because I realized it's a pretty nice shape for those things. It has lots of little zippers and pockets inside too, so there's places to put my ND filters for my drone, to put the extra propellers for the drone and all that, little cables and things. We also got a tweet. There's a tweet here from ya boy Matt Dixon, who's asking, what's your best recommendation for an all-in-one bag that can hold a full-size laptop, headphones and drive, and a DSLR comfortably with maybe a few notebooks? I'm guessing he means paper notebooks. Thanks for reading and all your great content.
Well, as you know, I really love these everyday backpacks from Peak Design. They've got a laptop compartment, and then they're really customizable in terms of what you put in the main compartment with all these different shelves and things that you can adjust so it fits your lenses and camera perfectly. A little pricey, though. I know you've got some options, too.
How much does that one cost?
Let's look. Tell us about your bag while I look it up. $200?
Yeah.
$250?
Well, I was thinking about how, I'm using the one I showed off in the video. I'm using this big Think Tank Perception Pro bag. It's a big bag. Like, I bet it holds more than your camera bag, right?
Mine's only a 20-liter.
Like, would you be able to get 3 camera bodies and 4 lenses and microphones and...
No.
All that. So mine is bigger.
They have a bigger version. I have the smaller version. So I have the 20. There is also a 30, but I wanted it to, I carry it every day, and I don't always have a lot of stuff in there. So.
Well, and that's why I was thinking your bag is the perfect one for him, because it sounds like that's all he needs. And I wonder, when he says DSLR, he may mean truly a DSLR that's not a Lumix mirrorless camera.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about the other bag I use, the smaller bag that I use is a low pro photo hatchback, which, if all his stuff is really slim, could work really well. Like, that bag for me fits 1 camera body, 2 lenses. Actually, no, it can fit 3 lenses, because I can fit the camera body with a lens on and 2 more lenses in the bottom portion. In the upper portion, I could fit plenty of things like headphones, a drive, all that, maybe some audio gear. And then the whole thing is about the size of a laptop, so I find that when I remove one of the Velcro kind of inside dividers, I can just slip the whole 15-inch MacBook inside the backpack. So if he was using a bigger laptop, it might not work. If he was using a bigger camera, it might not work. But for my stuff, I could fit all of those things in that small bag, which is, I think, even smaller than what you're using. I think now I'm having the problem that you've been complaining about all episode. All the sun in New York just went away for a second. Oh,
It got very dark.
Yeah.
I've been adjusting my blinds the whole episode, so apologize.
I actually have my LED lamp, my Westcott light, bouncing off the wall in front of me. So I think even if the room drops too much, I'm still hopefully properly exposed on my face at least.
I just want you to go and frame by frame adjust my exposure and make sure it's perfect every frame. In post. We got an email from Ian who says, you have 2 people in one room on separate mics in your H5. How do you stop each mic from picking up both parties? It's driving me crazy.
Well, yeah, he's talking about when, I guess it was 2 episodes ago, or the episode where we had John Luna on, who edits this podcast often. And we were both sitting together in the room. What he didn't notice is that I actually wasn't mic'd on that. Did you see that?
I think I did. You guys were sharing a mic, were you not?
Yeah, we were. But I put it in front of John because one thing we didn't talk about on the podcast, but if you've watched any of John's videos, maybe you know this, is that John is a burn survivor, and he speaks softly. He he has to take a breath between sentences. I mean, that's one of the things that happened to him after that. And so I just knew that I'd be talking at quadruple the volume of John. And so I was also worried about that phasing problem that we've had, where if we put mics in front of 2 people and we're too close together, we'll just pick each other up on both and get that slight reverb and delay. So I just put the blue baby bottle microphone right in front of him. It might have been 6 inches from his mouth. And then we were sitting pretty close to each other. I think I was 2 feet away from the microphone.
Yep.
And that just seemed to get, we did a mic test before we started, and we're getting pretty comparable levels. And that seemed to work.
Did you have to put a limiter or a compressor on it to help balance out the levels afterwards?
I mean, I think we put the normal compressor that we always put on our voice for the podcast.
Yep.
But it was nice that we got those levels correct at the start, because I didn't want John to have to go through and up the volume every time he was talking and then drop it back down every time I was talking. I mean, there's too much back and forth in a podcast like this. So it made sense just to get it right from the start.
Got it. Well, it worked out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the only consequence is that it's just, there's a little bit more reverb on me than normal. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to
read this email from Warren?
Yeah.
Or summarize it since it's a long one?
Yeah, in fact, I saw that you responded to him with some great technical information that was over my head. Warren asked, he has a late 2013 Mac Pro with 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte solid-state drive.
Beastly machine.
So he has a great editing machine, but he's talking about switching to a portable machine for editing for some of the things he needs to do. So right now he's looking at a 15-inch MacBook Pro, 2.6 gigahertz, 6-core with 16 gigs of RAM. And he's just wondering, he has 64 gigs on his other computer. Is 16 enough on this thing, or should he spend the money to go up to 32?
Yeah, and my point was 16 is probably plenty for what he's doing. Even with 4K, I find 16 gigs is mostly enough. So if it were me buying a laptop, I'm probably pocketing that $400 and using that elsewhere and sticking with 16. He also came back and asked the same question about upgrading from the i7 to the i9, which was another $300 or $400 upgrade. And again, I said I don't think if it's my dollars, I don't think I'm going to spend the money on that. You're getting 6 cores either way. If it was the upgrade to go from a 2-core to a 4-core, from a 4-core to a 6-core, for video editing, that might be worthwhile. But just to raise the top end clock speed, I'm going to stick with the defaults there.
Yeah, I think 16 gigs is what I have on my iMac and on my MacBook Pro, maybe. That works well for me.
I think I have 16 as well. Yeah, I've got 16, and I've got the dual-core i5, which that I do feel. I wish I had a quad-core processor, but 6-core i7 and 16 gigs of RAM, he's really going to enjoy that.
So we have an email from Hugh. He could use our advice on some gear that he may need to shoot a run and gun documentary. And actually, he told me exactly who he's filming a documentary with, and I don't want to reveal it because I don't know if it's my place to, but I'll just say that it's a very exciting opportunity that he has to work with some actual celebrities and music superstars in this thing. So he's going down to Miami to shoot this thing in November, and he knows that he's going to be a one-man band. He won't have a sound guy, and he has a GH5 right now, and that's what he wants to shoot with. So currently he's shooting with 4 Rokinon manual prime lenses. He's excited about shooting with those. He already uses those. But he's thinking for some of the run and gun stuff, he may just need a nice Micro Four Thirds Leica that's a little bit more compact. And he also is wondering about a camera, an on-camera shotgun mic to get good sound.
Yep.
So he's looking at the Leica 12 to 60 millimeter by Panasonic, and he's also looking at the Azden SGM 250CX microphone, and he's wondering if that might do what he needs to do backstage. I guess his biggest concern is like these celebrities coming backstage, meeting quickly, having an off the cuff moment together, and he just wants to be ready to capture it.
Yeah,
and get
audio.
audio.
No, it makes total sense. So I tried the Olympus 12 to 60 f2.8 to 4 lens, and I found that the aperture dropped off too quickly in that zoom range for me. I don't know if it's the same on the Leica. Something to look into. If you're backstage and it's dark, f4 is probably close to too dark, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So I would be concerned about that. You might look into like the 12 to 35, even though it's less tight. My guess is you'll be somewhat close, and the constant f2.8 might be valuable. I am not the shotgun mic expert, and I know you are, so I'll let you talk to that.
Well, yeah, I think you're right to talk about lighting backstage. I mean, he could either try to bring some light, but that could be difficult. So, yeah, maybe using that 12-35 with a bigger, more open aperture would be better. Also, you probably don't need 60 millimeters backstage. I'm guessing he has the access to be up close to people.
Right.
Now, my only concern about the Azden SGM 250CX, this is the microphone I use for a lot of the time, but it is a phantom-powered XLR microphone, so it does need to go into something like the XLR1 adapter. That's actually what I'm recording the podcast on today, putting the mic right into the XLR box on top of my camera. So you either need to spend, I think that's a $400 device. You either need to get that, or for a very comparable microphone, it actually has the exact same element inside. Azden makes the SMX15, which is same shotgun mic, but it plugs in to quarter or eighth inch. So you can go right into the camera. Same price, or yeah, I think it's the same price. It's also $200. And I would just either way, for a situation like that where it's so important that you're capturing the audio, just make sure you're wearing headphones plugged right into the camera. And if you can hear what's going on, then you're good.
Right.
And test it beforehand.
We've got an email from Brian. He says, when shooting video where there's a lot of something white in the frame, like a doctor's coat or a vehicle or a building exterior, he's struggling to get proper exposure. I've been able to adjust the video in post to be passable. I do use the waveform monitor on the GH5, but the levels seem to run higher once imported into Final Cut. The white levels are hot. What do you recommend, Mr. Griffin?
I guess I don't know exactly where in your chain, if the waveform on the camera is lying to you, like why you're getting hotter levels in Final Cut. But I do think this is why you get comfortable with the cameras that you use. It's good to use a camera for a while, and then when you're on your really important project, hopefully by now that okay, I need to underexpose everything by this amount. You would think reading the waveform monitor would give him all the information he needs. I could definitely understand if you're just relying on the exposure meter and you have some really white things in the frame, the camera may lie to you, and it may tell you that you're really overexposed when actually you're fine or something.
This is where I would recommend zebra stripes. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. If you don't have those turned on, that could be super helpful. And the zebra stripes, you can set them for whatever threshold you're comfortable with. You could set them to 90%, and if you see that a bunch of stuff in your frame is lighting up with zebra stripes, then you know that you don't want those things at 90%. You want to lower the exposure. But you could set the threshold even lower. If you find that every time you bring it into Final Cut, it's pretty hot, you could set your zebra stripes at 70%. And everything that's 70% in the shot in brightness will get lit up with zebra stripes, and you can try to avoid that. But yeah, I think this kind of trial and error is normal.
And Brian has a second question. He's using the XLR1 audio adapter that slides into the hot shoe we just talked about. He says, when using my shotgun mic running on phantom power from the XLR1, is it possible to record audio on both channels? I like to record one channel at a normal level and back off the second channel for safety against overmodulation. So I guess he's talking about, can he record normally on one channel and at a lower volume on the second channel in case he clips? Which is a clever idea, and I don't have any idea if it's possible, but you can tell me.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and you should do it if you could, but I don't think you can on the XLR1 adapter. I don't think it has that functionality. Other audio recorders I've used do have that functionality where you could plug in a mic to channel 1 and tell the recorder, actually, I would like you to record channel 1 to both channels. Let's record it once on channel 1 at this level, and then let's record it 6 decibels lower on channel 2, and that way if they peak, I have another channel I can cut to. But I don't think you can do that on the XLR1.
Good to know.
I kind of wonder, does someone make like an XLR splitter for this purpose?
I was just thinking that.
The XLR1 does have 2 XLR inputs, and it has 2 different volume controls on each. I almost wonder with like a firmware update if somehow Panasonic could add that. I don't even know if that's possible.
It would be a clever idea.
Yeah. You can't think of any other clever way to make that happen.
My brain went right to a splitter, just like your brain did.
Yeah. I mean, it's an expensive solution, but unless you already happen to have another shotgun mic around. But I mean, I have definitely recorded something with 2 similar shotgun microphones right next to each other, because that's the same way you could do the same idea. You know, I actually did something on the wedding. This was something I didn't need to do, but I just thought I would kind of cover myself with wireless mics. I have one wireless lav transmitter, but I happen to have 2 wireless receivers, because I also have a wireless receiver that works with, I guess I bought this particular lav mic because it would already work with wireless receivers I had for stick mics.
Yep.
So for the wedding, I just thought, just as a backup, just to make sure I'm getting a good signal, and I was probably always going to get a good signal because I was out next to a lake. That was right next to Lake Michigan. It's not like there's a lot of interference out there. But just, in case I put a camera in a weird spot and it wasn't getting a good signal, I just ran both receivers at the same time, put one on the XLR adapter. It's coming in XLR. These receivers also come with an 1/8" adapter, so I also had one plugged into an 1/8" to the GH4, and I was just recording the same audio to both, just in case.
And how did that work out?
Well, one, it actually sounds better on the GH5 with the XLR1 adapter, because I think when it comes in the XLR1, it's not doing any sort of auto gain or any in-camera limiting or anything like that, whereas I think the GH4 is trying to do some automated correction of the audio.
Controls on it, yeah.
So I get kind of like less frequency range on the GH4. It's just kind of a flatter recording.
Okay.
But, I mean, the signal was fine on both, so it didn't matter for that reason. But it was kind of nice just to have that redundancy. And then also, just as a way to sync the files, it worked a lot easier.
Yeah, much simpler.
But I guess I never thought about that before, that it's just radio frequency. There's no reason you can't have 2 receivers listening to the same frequency.
Now, there are some wireless mics out there, I feel like, where like the receiver communicates back to the mic.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-way communication, and in which case I wonder if that would cause an issue, but I guess I don't know that for sure. I might be just totally making it up.
Yeah, I don't know the technology, but you're right.
Bum-ba-da-bum. Should we do this last question, Mr. Hammond?
Yeah.
email from Austin. He says, to avoid buying too many ND filters, I got a huge batch of step up and step down rings from China. More than a few of these have gotten stuck on filters or to each other, and to remove them, I've basically had to ruin them with pliers. It's especially bad with polarizing and variable ND filters, which are rotating constantly anyway. I've actually got one that's still stuck on a filter. I wonder, what do you use these, and are there high-quality ones you can buy without breaking the bank? Griffin, I feel like this, I mean, I've seen you, like, with cutters and pliers and doing all kinds of weird stuff with filters. Have you run into this issue?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever had to take out pliers to remove a filter from a step-up ring. I don't know if I've ever let it get that bad, but I have certainly had the problem where filters are getting stuck, or just generally the cheaper step-up rings I have, it might just take me more time to find the, what are they called?
Get the threads to bite, basically. Yeah.
And so one thing I've noticed just kind of by accident, I bought some of the cheapest step-up rings I could, because that was kind of the whole idea. I have these, sometimes a $50 filter, ND filter, and I don't want to buy another $50 ND filter for my other lens that's a different size. So instead I could spend $5 on a step-up ring, and now my ND filter could fit on either camera. And so I have a ton of these step-up rings, and just based on the availability, some of the ones that were in stock or weren't in stock on B&H, I think I bought some of these step-up rings were $5, then some of them were $12. And I did notice that all the $12 ones work really well and are easy to use, and all the $5 ones I have problems with getting stuck, trouble finding the threading. They're just cheaper metal that I guess bends more easily, warps, it's not strong enough to thread nicely. So the ones I use are by a company called Sensei. You can find these on B&H. In fact, I'll put a link in the show notes at Hey.film. They're also on at griffinhammond.com/gear. But what I've learned is that some of the ones I have are the regular Sensei, and then some are called Sensei Pro. And I think the only difference is I later read that they make step-up rings in aluminum. That's the cheapest version. Then they make anodized aluminum, which I guess is a stronger version of that alloy. And then they also make brass ones. And I think the anodized ones and the brass ones are both in the Sensei Pro league. But I guess whatever brand of step-up rings you're buying, you may want to buy the ones that aren't the cheap, soft aluminum. And you may need to spend a few more dollars to do that.
A little bit more money to save what sounds like a lot of time and frustration.
It is worth it in the end, yeah. I kind of want to throw out all the $5 ones I have. And I don't know, maybe Austin got even cheaper ones that are really problematic. I was actually thinking, like, why would you ever need step-down rings?
As I read that, I was like, what the heck is a step-down ring for? That doesn't sound useful. But you tell me, what is it?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, almost any time it wouldn't make any sense for me to put a smaller ND filter on my bigger lens, because I'm going to introduce vignetting. Unless, if it's a zoom lens and I'm only going to use it at its tightest zoom, maybe that wouldn't be a problem. So in a pinch, I could do that. But one thing I realized is, let's say you're using Canon full frame glass on a Panasonic camera and you're not using a Metabone speed booster. Like if you're putting full frame glass on a crop sensor already, you probably do have some room where you could do a step down adapter and it wouldn't make a difference.
Sure.
Which some people are doing that. But I also think, a step up ring or step down ring is great if you find you're using that combination of lens and filter a lot. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, if it's just every once in a while, I need one of my filters to fit on my 25 millimeter, which is has a really small filter thread. A lot of times I'll just tape it on with gaff tape. And
yeah, I've seen that.
One way to do it. Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, speaking of that, I forgot that I promised I would tell you about all the mistakes I made on my video that I shot on Lake Michigan.
Oh, yes, go. You had to shoot it twice, you said.
Yeah, because we were talking earlier about the backlighting of the lake. When I was setting up the wedding to shoot that shot, it was still like an hour or two before the wedding was going to start, and I hadn't yet put my suit on. And I thought, this is a perfect time to shoot the promo video for the fact that I'm going to be in Salt Lake City. I need to let people know, and I already have some cameras set up, and I actually want to see cameras in the shot so I can just pull all this equipment over. And so I shot the video with, I think, maybe one of my GH5s or the GH4, and then I also decided to do a wide shot with the iPhone. And the iPhone shot actually looked really good. It was nice dynamic range, but the problem was I had put myself with the lake behind me, and I thought I exposed it in such a way, and I was shooting it with Vlog. I thought maybe I could pull all that information back, but when I got in the edit, just realized I am way too dark and silhouetted. This is like, it sounds good, it's nicely framed, it's great that I can see the lake behind me, but this is not a usable shot at all. So I ended up scrapping it and shooting it again.
You had to scrap
day.
it and shoot the whole thing again.
Yeah. But I learned from that and realized, well, one, I probably shouldn't shoot this at 3 p.m. in the middle of the day when the sunlight is pretty harsh and it's really lighting up the background and really putting me in the shade under these trees. Sorry, I'm back. I ran out of space on even my 2 SD cards. I guess my first SD card already had some stuff
full.
on it. My second one, I guess, we
It's a
filled it
long
up.
episode.
This is a long episode.
We're over an hour already.
And luckily your G85 shoots at a slightly lower bit rate, and you have a 64 gig card in there?
Yeah. I think I can
So
shoot for like
good.
6 hours or something. So we're just getting started. Hour 1
All
of
right,
6 down.
let me wrap up this story then.
Okay, so you were an idiot and had to redo your video. Is that right?
Yeah, and I decided to shoot it earlier in the morning when the sun was a little bit softer, maybe better color in the sky, and I still wanted to see the lake behind me. So what I did the second time, instead of shooting with the lake fully behind me, I went to the edge of this little cliff we were on and just turned my body so I was facing, at least half my body was facing the sun.
Right.
And you could see the coastline behind me. So you could still see the lake, but I'm just not completely with my back turned to the sun.
I thought it looked nice.
Yeah. Although I still, kind of at the last minute, I kind of failed again. I intended to do it kind of as the sun was coming up when the lighting was perfect, but by the time I got the whole thing set up, I think the sun had already been up for 15 minutes, and so now the background behind me was getting a lot brighter than me. So I did end up grabbing my LED light just to throw some extra light on my face.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the colors in the end looked pretty nice. I wasn't super happy with how the lighting turned out on myself. If I had really been more thoughtful about it, I ended up just kind of putting the light on one of the tripod legs. So it's kind of coming from a little bit below me and right in front of me. It's not really the angle of light that was the most flattering.
Just speaking of lighting, you took a photo of all your camera gear laid out nice, as part of the promo, I guess, or part of the video you made. How did you, I mean, it actually looks really good. Did you like that with the other flex light, or what did you use to shoot that?
With that, that actually was taken with the iPhone.
Okay.
And so I laid out all my camera equipment just on a table in my hotel room. I was a little bit limited by the size of the table. It was kind of small. I think to make a truly beautiful flat lay shot, I would have liked a little bit more space between some of the items.
I think it works how tight it is. I kind of like it.
It's a little crowded, but yeah, it looks cool. I was able to get everything on that table.
So is that just a window to the north or to the top of the frame there?
Yeah. Luckily the table was on wheels, and so I moved it across my hotel room to put it next to the window, and then I turned off all the lights in the hotel so that I'd only get that really nice, soft, kind of cloudy day sun coming through the window.
It's got all these great highlights and reflections on everything. There's a lot of depth to it. It looks really good. So anyway,
and I was standing on another table so that I could get the camera as high as possible. And as I was playing around with the iPhone, I realized, oh, well, of course, this looks a lot better in the telephoto camera, because, a flat lay shot, if I take it with the wide angle camera, everything's going to look a little bit distorted on the edges. If I really want it all to look very flat and appropriately sized, I should take it with the tightest camera available.
Man, you must have been up close to the ceiling then.
Oh, I was on the ceiling. I did, and actually the ceiling was kind of helpful, because I could put the iPhone completely flush against the ceiling. The screen is against the ceiling. I can't see the screen anymore. And then I could click the volume button to do the shutter.
To activate the shutter, yeah.
And because I was putting it up against the ceiling, it was perfectly flat. So I was getting my angle exactly right.
Yeah.
But every time I would take the picture, I would pull the phone back down and I would see, oh, well, I didn't frame it just right. You know, it was so tight that I was cropping like, oh, I missed the edge of the drone, or, you know, I accidentally cropped out part of the laptop. So I probably had to take that photo 10 times before I got the framing just right.
Well,
and only barely could fit everything in it.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. But yeah, it turned out nicely. And it was kind of cool to take that photo, and then I was able to share that at the workshop in Salt Lake and just say, literally, this is everything that I brought today, and it's all here for you to play with, but I just wanted to show it to you in one photo.
Did you record your workshop?
Yeah. Well, I did a 2-hour workshop, and I did a 4-hour workshop the next day. I recorded most of the 2-hour. I think I just let it run out when I hit the end of my SD cards.
Right.
And I only did it one camera angle, and it was kind of a wide shot. I was laved up, so it sounds good. That's actually what we watched a snippet of earlier today.
Oh, right.
In this episode.
Right.
But, you know, I maybe I could put out everything I have, but like I said, I don't have the whole thing, and it's not the best lighting, and, you know, you can't see everything I did. But I think to pull out some snippets, it was nice to capture that.
Cool.
We answered all the questions.
We did it. And so this is kind of wrapping up our full-length long episodes. Is that right? We started this whole show with a new Panasonic camera, and I guess we're kind of wrapping up these long-form episodes on the same, which is kind of poetic.
Yeah, I mean, this is episode number 80 of the podcast, and we've now done, I think, about 59 hours of this show.
Sure.
So if you haven't heard all 59 hours, there's plenty of content for you to look back on.
Or if you have, just start again. Yeah.
I
watch The West Wing over and over again. That's what you should do with this podcast.
But yeah, as we explained on a couple episodes ago, I want to get back to making more shorter form content. In fact, in this last week, making that 3-minute video, making a 7-minute video, I got a lot of positive feedback on it. I think some people want to see a lot more of that kind of content. So I want to free myself up to make more of those kinds of videos. I also want to get away from the numbered
episodes
part of this podcast. Yeah, it's nice just to be able to say, here's the title of the video, and it's not episode 81. It's just a video
here's
about
what we're talking
this.
about today. Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll be a little bit more targeted in the future and a little bit shorter. So we'll still have Nick on the YouTube channel, and we'll still publish things to the podcast feed, both audio and on YouTube. But this is the end of 45-minute and hour-long episodes.
Yep. Well, it's been a pleasure thus far, and look forward to the new format.
Yeah. Well, as
Alrighty,
always,
my friend.
I'll talk to you again soon.
I've lost you with my headset, so I'll just say bye-bye.
No, I lost him. That's how we're ending it. Okay.
I'm ready when you... Oh, and it got sunny again. There we go. All right, I'm ready.
So what are you doing every time it gets sunny?
I'm adjusting the angle of my blinds.
To let in less or more light?
Yep. Oh, look, getting dark again.
Wait, are you still there?
Hey, my headset died right as we were saying goodbye.
All right. Well, actually, that's probably an okay way to say goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I kept it going, and I actually said goodbye. I said, well, my headset just died, so we'll see you later. Bye-bye. And I waved to him. So I don't know if you had an ending or not.
No, that's the way to do it.